What a year it has been for the gay vampires, huh? First Kill and Interview with the Vampire have been my two faves, especially the latter. If you're on my Tumblr, you know that this show has basically become my new obsession. When I say this show has roots in me, all its spindly roots in me, and I can't think nothing more than this show in my head. Help me! I'm weak. I can't wait for season 2. I really admire how the show has taken the characters of Louis and Lestat and reimagined them in a way that feels so fresh and new, yet familiar. These two and their dynamic have inspired many characters in vampire media for decades. If you have watched a vampire show or movie that had a sad, brooding vampire who was probably a slave owner or a Confederate soldier, I mean, it doesn't always have to be, but, then that's Louis. And if that vampire has a strained relationship of some sorts with a deviously charming, destructive vampire who relishes the kill and has a slight rock sensibility about him, that's Lestat. They are the OGs of that whole archetype. Seriously though, Interview with the Vampire is one of the best new shows to come out this year. Watching the behind the scenes special and looking at the crew members' Instagram pages and seeing all of the research that went into recreating New Orleans of the 1910s, the set pieces, all the costumes, the cultural and historical references. Oh my diddy, they really did that shit. Let me just take a few minutes to praise the cast for a second. Jacob Anderson as Louis de Pointe de l'Arc is just perfect casting. If you are a black Brit like me and of a certain age, then you may remember Jacob Anderson in the sequel to Adulthood called Adulthood. He played Omen, Sam's younger brother, and look how cute he was over here.
I get treated certain ways everywhere we go. But even when I'm not doing nothing, man's watching me. Man judging me. Man for something you done. That's making the best of a bad situation.
If you never watched that Hood classic, then you probably know Jacob for his music. Or from Game of Thrones, where he played Grey Worm and was so underutilized. So I am happy that he's able to act here, and he has the range, okay? The very first episode, we see it all, especially that confessional scene where Louis just pulls his heart out. I have watched that scene countless of times. I have the lines memorized. I run to the bottle, I run to the grift, I run to bed. Beds. I lay down with a man. I lay down with the devil. Jacob Anderson has made me love Louis. I never saw it for Book Louis. He was whiny to me, and he's most likely the reason I never liked any of the sad, brooding, woe is me type of vampires in any work of fiction. But this Louis right here, he actually has a lot to contend with, being who he is in the time and place that he is. And he's very much aware of that. He knows he's exploiting women by being a pimp. He knows all of these things. And the guilt he feels from every corner of his life. I mean, he's very Catholic about it. That confessional scene in the first episode, I keep going back to it because it really just puts a lot of the inner turmoil that Louis is dealing with right in our laps. This Louis also has some edge to him. He's not whiny all the time. Don't get it twisted. Big man Louis will boss up to you real quick. So you better put some respect on his name, all right?
I wasn't a man anymore. I was something else. I had powers now and decades of rage to process, and it was both random and unfortunate the man picked that night to dabble in fuckery. If not him, would have been the next man.
Louis is also my sweet angel pie who I just want to take care of. Look at him. Are you hungry? Kilo feje? Let me make you something, my dear. Then there is Sam Reed as Lestat. So I thought I've never seen Sam Reed before. I was like, I don't know who this white man is.
I hate to say it. I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street. I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
But then my mutual on Tumblr was like, you have seen him before. He was in Belle with Gugu Mbatha-Raw. And I was like, who did he play on Belle? And she told me, the love interest. So I had to go back and I saw him then. I was like, holy shit, that was him. So I guess I have seen him before. I don't pay attention to white celebrities that much, okay? So, yeah. Sam Reed is so good as Lestat, like too good. And apparently he was obsessed with vampires, which makes so much sense. And this Lestat, he is just amazing. Honestly, I love him and I hate him and I love him and I hate him. And that's how you're supposed to feel about Lestat. You're supposed to love and hate him at the same time.
I had planned to make a new life for myself in Saint Louis. That was to be my destiny. And now I know I was right. Only it turns out the Saint is not a city, but a handsome man with a most agreeable disposition.
Plus, the chemistry that Sam Reed and Jacob Anderson have is honestly just perfect. It's electric. Their dynamic is just, it's perfect. I really, really love it. Like, OTP, toxic OTP. Really, seriously. He's just so good.
We're a family.
Bailey Bass as Claudia, my murderous former daughter, current sister. Keep slaughtering people. You're doing amazing, sweetie. I would say more, but spoilers, okay? Eric Bogosian as Daniel Malloy. Like, this was so good to age up Daniel and just make everything different. Just really throw a spanner into the works of what everyone was expecting to happen. Daniel Malloy, he's just tired. He's fed up. He wants the truth. He came here to conduct an interview, but now it's turned into a messed up therapy session. Poor Daniel.
Things didn't end well the last time. So forgive me if I'm a little nervous.
Then there is Asad Zaman as Rashid. And, you little so-and-so. And that's what I'm going to say, because I knew it. I clocked from early. I mean, a lot of us did, yeah, but, okay. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Spoilers, again. I'm going to try my best to avoid major spoilers, especially the season finale, but they are going to be spoilers, so tread with caution.
Memory is a monster. We forget. It doesn't.
That quote is by John Irving from his 1989 novel, A Prayer for Owen Meany. The full quote is, "Your memory is a monster. You forget. It doesn't. It simply files things away. It keeps things from you, or hides things from you, and summons them to your recall with will of its own. You think you have a memory, but it has you." In this new interview with the vampire, we meet Louis de Pointe-du-Lac, who has invited Daniel Malloy, a journalist who he originally met back in San Francisco in 1973, where they had an interview that went terribly. Now in Dubai 2022, almost 50 years later, Louis wants another interview. Essentially, a do-over. This time, they are going to do it right, as Daniel is now a seasoned journalist who knows how to properly conduct an interview and asks all the right and hard-hitting questions.
Did you eat the baby?
As you watch the series, with each episode, you will come to learn one thing about Louis de Pointe-du-Lac. He just may be a little bit of an unreliable narrator. There are some inconsistencies to his stories. Now, I want to make one thing very clear before I move forward, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Unreliable narrator does not always mean a liar. In this interview, Louis is recalling memories from 100 years ago. I can barely remember what I was doing 10 days ago, let alone 10 years ago. Memories are a tricky thing. Think about the big moments in your life. Do you remember what shoes you were wearing? The tiny details are usually forgotten.
Did it rain?
I don't remember now. It could have been dry in the bayou and wet in the quarter. It's Louisiana.
The Odyssey of Recollection.
Daniel, the experienced and accomplished journalist that he is, notices the glaring differences in Louis' story and calls him out on it.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's not so much the minute details, Louis, rather the total rewrite that's giving me pause here. I mean, 1973.
He was a sow's ear out of which nothing fine could be made. I was his complete superior, and I had been sadly cheated in having him for a teacher.
2022.
It was a cold winter that year, and Lestat was my coal fire.
Fun fact, the 1973 recordings are actual lines taken from the book.
The version we speak of now is the more nuanced portrait.
To cement that this is the more nuanced interview than the one from the past, Daniel deletes the files and tosses the tapes into the bin, which Louis then sets on fire. This was such a bad boy move to me. I loved it. And I can understand why some people did not, but I'll explain why I thought it was genius. One could argue that Rowling Jones and the writer's room are in a way symbolically burning the original canon of the first book of the Vampire Chronicles. They obviously have respect and reverence for Anne Rice. Of course they do. But Interview with the Vampire is such a different book compared to the subsequent books in the series. Character backstories and lore have changed, and there is a lot of retcons, especially when you look at how Anne Rice's writing became more unedited, let's say. The Lestat in the first book is not the lovable brat prince that Anne Rice comes to adore in the Vampire Lestat and onwards. Having the whole book series completed means that they can do a better job at weaving the grand tapestry of not just the Vampire Chronicles story, but the immortal universe as a whole without hand-waving it away by saying, oh, Louis was lying.
They met in San Francisco in 1973. I think they had this interview. And I think 50 years later, they're having this interview.
So in this brand new canon, the showrunners can easily make references to characters and events that have already happened and foreshadow events that are yet to happen. Louis wasn't lying about Lestat in his 1973 interview. He was upset and bad-mouthing his ex, and who hasn't been there? So yes, Louis is an unreliable narrator, in the way that we are all unreliable narrators when recounting events of our past. We embellish, we exaggerate, we make ourselves appear a certain way. Louis isn't lying to Daniel in 2022. If anything, Louis is still lying to himself, and he made that very clear in episode 1.
And the latencies within me, well, I beat those back with a lie I told myself about myself.
Louis is telling the truth from his own point of view, which can differ greatly from others who were also there. Episode 4 and 5 highlighted this. The way how Louis saw Claudia and her actions were very different to how Claudia saw herself. Maybe in an attempt to cling to some semblance of humanity and normalcy, Louis looked at Claudia through rose-tinted glasses, his sweet and innocent daughter. So happy and carefree, yet after the accidental murder of her boyfriend, it caused her to become detached from humanity.
For Claudia, all humans died with Charlie.
However, in Claudia's diary, in her own words, we can see that she took to vampirism the way a duck takes to water.
Seeing as Mama died, and Auntie, she was burnt up too, I decided to make the best of it.
Claudia rejects a potential victim because it's an easy kill. She prefers the thrill of the hunt, so much so that she hums the tune of A Hunting We Will Go.
Young girl? Where are your parents at this hour?
She and Lestat have a cutesy nickname for Blood, and she fixates on the last words of victims and humans that have died. She was detached from humanity very early on. It didn't happen with the death of Charlie.
You suck 'em like frog legs and burn 'em like trash.
Louis' truth can also be interpreted in many different ways by not only the person listening to his account, in this case Daniel, but to whoever may read the book that they are working on.
Once you put it out there, they decide what it is. It can get away from you.
I do not consider myself abused.
You're a victim.
Coming to the end of episode 7, where Daniel goes in on Louis and confronts him with the many inconsistencies. And being confronted in such a manner for the first time in a very long time triggers Louis to have a mental breakdown when the truth starts slipping in and we finally see that you think you have a memory, but it has you. I am looking forward to the second season and hopefully, fingers crossed, season 3 and more. I really want to know how Louis will fit into the narrative moving forward, as Louis in the books is kind of thrown to the wayside, as he was written to be a vessel to process Anne Rice's grief, and when she dealt with her grief, I think she was done with Louis. Lestat was also probably a lot more fun to write. But I doubt that this show, that symbolically burned the book, would do the same, and then turn everything into the many adventures of the vampire Lestat. The writers seem to love this version of Louis since they gave him the fire gift. TV Louis is a lot stronger than Book Louis. Book Louis couldn't even read minds. The viewers also love him too. I mean, I certainly do. That's my baby. Yeah, he's a bit messed up, but we'll get him into therapy very soon. And finally, I want to know where we are in the timeline of events and what other amazing changes do they plan to make. because I'm here for it. Not gonna lie, I am convinced that they have sprinkled something into this show the way it has me by my edges. I swear down. Thank you for watching, and a special shout out to everybody on the Azalea Discord. Our talks inspired this video. And of course, thank you to all of my wonderful patrons: Cheyenne Lynn, Hariana Hook, Kemi, Mariah, M. Zaid, Jewel Fins, Punk Rock Users, Des and Hill Richards Campbell, Hyphenated, and Quinn. See you lot in the new year. Bye!